Welcome to the second in our Full FX video Disruptor series with LMAX Group. I'm delighted to again be joined by David Mercer, CEO of LMAX Group. David, for this episode, I'd like to talk, if we could, our first episode was 100% focused on crypto. What I'd like to do now is maybe focus on those sort of crypto fiat crossover areas, and where the differences are. You sit in the perfect place. You're running LMAX Exchange, you're running LMAX Digital, you've got the broker, so you're across both asset classes, I guess we can call them. So first of all, I'd like to pick up on a couple of things we spoke about in our first video. 24/7. I still tend to feel you're a bit of a voice in the wilderness on this one.
I think that's very fair. I think that's very fair, but it's never scared us. It's a bit like a decade ago when I was sort of being very vocal about my opinions on Last Look. It's sometimes you've got to just do what you think is right. You've got to stand for something. Yeah. So look, 24/7 is inevitable in capital markets. That's just a fact. A decade from now, people will expect to be buying their shares on a Saturday or Sunday. People will expect to be trading foreign exchange or a Saturday or Sunday. I'd like to say you can do that today on LMAX Group, but it's tiny. I don't have a lot of interest in Eurodollar or cable at the weekend, but we do trade a lot of Bitcoin, a lot of Ethereum through LMAX Digital at the weekend. So the blocker really is the plumbing isn't set up 7 days a week. And you can't blame anyone for that, because as long as you and I have been in capital markets, you close the shop at 5 p.m. London or 10 p.m. New York, and you happen to have 48 hours off, and then you wait for Auckland to open. So if you like, payment rails, settlement rails, reconciliations didn't need to operate, and technologists had 2 days to fix stuff or to introduce new technology. When you can't suddenly say to someone, hey, we're going to trade Eurodollar on a Saturday, because it's like every part of their institution is set up to not operate on a Saturday, Sunday. So it's going to take time for them to plug in. So LMAX Global is a good example of that on the brokerage side. We launched Weekend FX and we launched 7-day-a-week Bitcoin trading last year. About 10% of my brokers could take the feed, right? Because they used aggregators, and they were like, well, our aggregator doesn't work on a Saturday or Sunday. And you go, well, why not? And they said, well, we do maintenance on a Saturday. Hands up, we release to our exchanges every other Saturday, and that takes a few hours. In LMAX Digital, we don't, and it only takes 5 minutes. So we'll have 5 minutes of downtime. So most of it's infrastructural. So it will take a decade to get right. But I just think, the world's going 24/7. The world's becoming more global. I think it's exciting for investors of all shapes and sizes to rebalance their portfolio, maybe when they're not so time poor. So most people have a job, and investing is not their main job, and they haven't got the time to look at stuff on a Monday to Friday. They actually like to rebalance and maybe make investment decisions on a Saturday or Sunday. So I think it's inevitable. You expect to do your shopping online 24/7 now. I think it will be the same for capital markets. And I think for those of us in the market, it's hugely exciting. Don't tell everyone, but there's nothing better than being on the 15th tee at 10 a.m. on a Saturday and you're getting paid commission, right? And you're matching orders. There is no better feeling. And the first time in 30 years, I have that feeling.
I guess it's not quite the same for the guy who wants to be on the 10th tee, but can't because he's got Eurodollar around his neck and he's struggling to get out of it.
So actually, genuinely, I know, because I know you have young adult children. It actually is changing people's lives. When we hire younger people now, we're saying, yeah, look, your hours aren't going to be any longer, but they're going to be different.
Yeah.
If you're not happy to work on a Saturday or Sunday for whatever reason, this may not be the place for you, because 1 in 4, your week is going to run from Saturday to Wednesday.
Yeah.
Your weekends, Thursday or Friday. That's sort of manufactured. But literally, although it sounds simple, the people front, actually been able to operate on those 2 days when people are normally off or have other commitments, be it family or school or whatever. That's challenging. And I just say for the younger people coming into the marketplace, you just got to get your head round a more flexible work week.
And if they worked behind a bar or in a shop when they were getting through uni, they're used to doing that. I'm kind of sensing whether I'm getting the first stage of the David Mercer manifesto for government, as in full employment, because every job will need 2 people.
Yeah, I think it is great. I mean, look, I've gone partly, we've had a modicum of success over the last few years, but just in the last 12 months, my headcount's gone from 160 globally to 200. Yeah. It will probably be 250 by the end of next year. Now, some of that is LMAX Digital going well. Some of it is just the fact that I need to operate customer services, market operations, technology, software and hardware 7 days a week. And there's only so long you can ask someone who's already done their day job for you Monday to Friday to help you out on a Saturday. It gets a bit old, right? They're quite happy to earn a little bit of overtime or earn a day off in lieu for a week or two or a month or two. But when you're 3 years in, they kind of say to you, David, I can't work 365 days a year. So some of that uplift is just, trying to cover it. Yeah. And I think it's great because in the old days, if you like, if someone came into the office and I had to pay them overtime or give them a day off on Saturday or Sunday, we weren't earning any money. There was no revenue generation. So that was just a cost to the business. And the good news is now there's some revenue generation that you can apply against the cost. Yeah. So it's like, so now there's a real reason for these people to be in the office, right? To deliver that service that makes it a good commercial opportunity.
Okay, so let's look at it in terms of the market itself then, this crossover, because I had 2 conversations fairly recently with crypto market makers. And one sort of said to me, we really rely upon the retail flow because the institutional stuff is really tricky to price. Yep. And the other one was saying, well, you know what? I'm fed up with all this retail flow, which is clogging up my pipes, when what I really want to do is just get to that institutional flow. Now, this sounds suspiciously like an FX market structure from a few years ago, where we had that divide. Now, and obviously, you've always argued that there shouldn't be a divide between retail and institutional, and I've always argued there should be. So we're obviously now more familiar territory, disagreeing. But it's like, is this structure evolving in a similar way to FX a few years ago?
So I think it is, but it's a long way back. It might be retail FX in the 90s rather than in the 2000s. In that, look, so yes, we might disagree about that delineation between institutional and retail. I happen to think all capital markets are like a rock formation. Now, the key rock formation, the bedrock, is an institutional marketplace, an orderly market, where, if you like, the big guns are trading with each other, right? They're exchanging risk and they're using large balance sheets and they've got, large positions on. Now, if you go all the stratification throughout that, so you've got the banks and the prop trading firms trading, and then you've got the corporates and the asset managers stratifying above that. And then right at the outer edge of the ecosystem is a retail trader buying or selling or speculating on euro or gold. All of those crumbs feed back down to the bedrock, which is the institutional market, which would be my LMAX exchange. I happen to think capital markets is all about market access, so I'm proud of the fact that LMAX Global, our brokerage operation, can provide access to a retail broker and their retail clients the same institutional exchange access. So I'm a big fan of that structure. Now, the crossover. In FX, everyone likes retail flow. It's small, it's uncorrelated. So market makers like that flow, but there's just not enough of it. The reality is FX is so big, retail is 15 to 20% of the market. So yes, there's a clamor to get that. Now in crypto, it's the other way around. Crypto, I'd say today, is 90% retail. So to the point of those 2 market makers, when the smart guys are in, when the institutions are in trading, and actually you'll see that a lot on LMAX Digital, it's the purest of all the exchanges we operate. And it really is a no tears venue. And when the institutions come in crypto, if they buy or sell 5 or 10 million, it moves the market.
Yeah.
If you're making that passively, it's going to look sharp. It's going to be damaging. So you have to be on your game to participate in that marketplace. Now, a lot of my LPs, and by the way, they're the same ones who trade foreign exchange with me. So 40% of LMAX Digital customers trade FX with me. So the best proprietary trading firms in FX are also the best proprietary trading firms in crypto.
Yeah.
There is another set that only run, and it's the same in FX, Colin. There's another set of makers who just want to make retail because spreads are wider, the flows are tiny tickets, you can warehouse a lot, you can cross up a lot, you can internalize. In crypto, more than euro, if you try and internalize some of my institutional crypto flow, I'm afraid you're going to have a very short-lived career.
Is that going to be a concern going forward, though? If are we going to hit I guess like a black spot where the existing market makers that aren't really at their game for institutional are getting more reluctant and they're pulling back, but the guys that are able to do it are not quite there. Is there a risk of that happening?
It may be, but I would say, look, so there's an unknown question there. There are some as you well know, there are some very good bank liquidity providers, market makers in foreign exchange.
Yeah.
They're not yet in crypto as actively. Now, everyone talks about HFTs or whatever. Some banks are the best low latency traders on the street. In fact, most of them are. The big names, the guys who top BIS and Euromoney surveys, they're very good low latency traders. So they're not there. So I have an unknown. I just can't answer it because we're not seeing that activity yet. But on the non-bank side, we've talked about non-banks for a long time in foreign exchange. I would say most of the good ones, so most of the ones, again, that are on those surveys are active in crypto. They're very good at foreign exchange and they're very good at crypto. So I'd say you have the basis today, but it's only half, let's just pick a number. It's only half of the foreign exchange market. So it'd be interesting to see when the other half join. But again, back to that bedrock, I think the non-banks have created a very good institutional liquidity bedrock. When the banks come, it should only improve further.
I guess my challenge to that would be that the non-bank firms in foreign exchange typically acknowledge they exist in a certain sector of the market in terms of ticket size. And obviously in crypto, that sort of sweet spot's going to be lower than it is in FX. Is there going to be a challenge for them, that actually I don't really want to be quoting these guys in these amounts, the way they are in foreign exchange?
Maybe. I mean, actually, you get that crossover. I mean, you'll have that conversation over lunch or over dinner. You speak to an old school FX trader and they go, David, if I want to buy 20 million Bitcoin, and I just look at them and say, but you don't want to buy 20 million Bitcoin. I'm sorry, that's not happening. This isn't cable. If your normal shape,
what's your leverage?
Yeah, exactly. You talk to prop trading guys in FX and you go, well, what's your risk appetite? And they're like, I trade in 10s and 20s and I go up to 50. Look, in crypto today, if that's what you do in FX, just divide it by 10 at least. So what you're going to be wanging around is a buck or two. There's plenty of liquidity for that today. Right. But you're not going to get one shape or one fill, and you'll get the same 5 or 10 fills you'll get in $20 for a buck or two in crypto. So look, it has to evolve. I'm not seeing many people right now wanting to buy those shapes. It will happen. Now, what's really exciting, what's really interesting is that they're using FX algos. So you will have a customer, well-known car maker said, they put, I think it was 8% of their balance sheet into Bitcoin. then they sold it again. But anyway, you can't do that. You just can't execute an order for $1 billion on it. You're going to have to use an algo, and the algo will probably work over a day, maybe a week, to buy that shape. If you want to buy or sell 100 million, you say, oh, David, just buy me 100 million Bitcoin today, the market will move 20%. So it would be a silly thing to do. You've just got to use the old, and there's a lot of great FX algos out there. Just dust them off. They haven't got to be particularly smart. As I said, I've always said to you, there's two types of algos, fast ones and slow ones. Use the slow one, and that's how you're going to access the market.
Is that actually going to be like, though, again, yet another challenge for the crypto world, that we haven't seen in FX? The fact that, people won't have the patience. I mean, I look at the average crypto investor, and I use that phrase very unwisely. Patience doesn't strike me as one of their virtues.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that we've all got to learn. Like, personally, my PA crypto trading is shocking. Because you're never long enough. You're never long enough when it's down low here, and then you're way too long when it's hit the highs. Yeah. So it's a funny thing, isn't it? It's a gold rush. It's a bit like the .com time. You didn't know which stock to buy. I mean, all you have to do is look at my email address. I mean, I thought Yahoo was going to be the winner because I'm the only man in the world apparently who still has a Yahoo email account. The winners obviously knew it was going to be Google. So it's a bit like that. There's, when your taxi driver or the security guard at reception starts asking me, should I buy Bitcoin? You've hit the top. Yeah. So there is a bit of a frenzy. I think honestly, people should be looking at it as a long-term asset. You can be in or you can be out. I'm not an evangelist telling you have to have a lot of your portfolio in Bitcoin, but you've just got to think of it on a long-term basis. I can't tell you the right price, but I can tell you when the guy in the street who doesn't know how to trade foreign exchange says, I bought some Bitcoin, it's going to be pain. There's some pain ahead. But
in its own way, that's not dissimilar to the foreign exchange market. I mean, we would sit there and say, like, there were certain people out there, knew when they turned around and started saying dollars going up, that we're at the top. I guess it comes down to these trading styles. Something else I wanted to ask you about. You recently signed an agreement with Pith Network.
Yep.
So obviously this is stepping into the DeFi world. My understanding is this is very much about the crypto market data.
Yeah.
But how do you see that deal feeding into the fiat space, and what are those nuances between market data delivery to Pith Network and to a pricing engine in FX?
Yeah, so look, if you'll bear with me for a little bit, I'll just go my view of DeFi and how we can straddle the two. So it might take a minute or two. So decentralized finance, it's hot at the moment. All the youngsters have things on their phone like MetaMask. I have it. I don't profess to understand everything. We're staking some coins. I'm just trying to learn as an individual, actually. So what do I think about decentralized finance? I think it's going to play into capital markets. I think there's a lot of traditional capital markets will benefit from DeFi. Now, one of the simplest things is imagine a scenario where you can put your own personal balance sheet, or an institution can put their balance sheet on the blockchain, and they can put their assets to work. So literally, you happen to have dollars in your bank account for 8 hours during the day. It's earning you no money. No one pays you interest for 8 hours. In decentralized finance, you can put that to work. Someone said, actually, I wouldn't mind borrowing those dollars for 8 hours. Will you pay me? I'll pay you X% for it. That's good. So you imagine everyone's balance sheets up there. Now, those balance sheets can be anything. They don't have to be money. So it's this tokenization of asset idea. So you might lend me, because you've come over to see your mum, you might lend me your house in Sydney, and I'll say, well, actually, I'll lend you my office, Colin, in London for when you're here. And you go, well, how do we value that? And you say, well, look, we're just going to do it in a smart contract in decentralized finance. So what's the key to that? David, how are we going to value it? Now the penny's starting to drop.
The key to it is locking up that wine collection.
Correct. That's right. I'm not a big fan of Australian wine, but the key thing there is, how do we value those assets? Now, it could be a euro, or it could be a house or a flat. So let's bring it back to capital markets. The future, in my opinion, is that we trade S&P Bitcoin. We trade Bitcoin Tesla. We can trade any asset against any asset. And again, back to where we started, on a 24/7 basis. But the beauty of decentralized finance is it's all tokenized, it's on a smart contract, and you should never actually be on a margin call. So you don't need that, because the smart contract is valuing this asset. So you need a way of valuing it. All of a sudden, the status quo, dare I say it, LMAX Group can play a part. LMAX Exchange, which is a centralized exchange. We're not decentralized. So what do? We're pretty good at market data. So we have pretty good foreign exchange market data. So I contribute it to what they call an oracle, which is the PIF Foundation and the PIF network. I just stream price that. It means that any smart contract that has a euro or a peso or an Aussie dollar leg of it, they can be sure that that's valued correctly.
Right.
And then likewise, I can contribute prices for Bitcoin and for Ethereum. And if you go to the property example, so the biggest estate agents in the world will just stream in a value of a house that looks like this, maybe once a day. So the valuation of the asset class, the valuation of the asset is key for decentralized finance to work. So we're really excited about it. I'm really excited to be part of it. It's at early stages, Colin. So the goal is that becomes the oracle, this source of market data in capital markets. There's a lot of big names involved. It's not just LMAX. There's a lot of big trading firms involved. I know there's large exchanges coming, because currently they have the best market data in traditional capital markets, and maybe they can see the valuation of assets in the new capital markets, which is DeFi.
So this strikes me that we're talking a future that very much sees the boundaries broken down, not just between crypto and fiat, but across every asset class out there you care to mention. Is that how you see it?
Yes. But in a word, I think it's hugely exciting. I think that nirvana where, the picture I painted of your balance sheet on the blockchain and your assets going to work for you second by second, minute by minute, may not happen in my lifetime, or certainly in my working career. But I think the partition wall, as we currently see it between crypto and fiat, to start with, we've broken down very quickly. I like to think LMAX is a start there. I mean, the crypto evangelists don't know how to take me and LMAX Digital, because I'm almost a status quo, which they're trying to usurp. So I'm like, David, you run a centralized exchange and LMAX Exchange and LMAX Global. I'm like, yes. And now you have this crypto thing, LMAX Digital. I'm saying, yes. So we're straddling the two, and they're separate exchanges, right? The ecosystems are different, but I have the same participant in both. Now, interesting enough, I think only 2 years from now, they'll trade on the same exchange, right? Hot off the press, I will be launching an exchange in Asia later this year. And for the first time in LMAX Group, I will have crypto and exchange within the same infrastructure, so that you will be able to trade Bitcoin dollar as easy as you can, euro dollar. Today, it's not my fault. You have to have two separate accounts, right? You have to have an account with digital and an account with exchange. So that will be the first one. I think that's the first step. The partition wall between fiat and crypto will disappear very quickly because all the banks, all the intermediaries will start to offer that product. And then the next step is a bigger leap, don't get me wrong, is that everything to everything DeFi world. That might take a decade or so, but I think it's coming.
Yeah. It's an interesting one to me because, as reluctant as I am to sort of give you any encouragement and praise you, it strikes me that the crypto world doesn't want the man involved. It's the most ridiculously naive thing in the world. if that market's going to grow. So it does actually need somebody. And I guess you've got the credentials of, as you said at the start of this video interview, well, 10 years ago, the foreign exchange market thought you were, a loudmouth outsider coming to disrupt everything. So you're not that different to what they were 10 years ago. So maybe actually, you may have even convinced me here on LMAX Group's role in this new ecosystem.
That'd be nice. And look, I'm very, we're passionate, believe it or not, we're very passionate about capital markets. I've been in it for 30 years. I happen to be very passionate about foreign exchange market. I love the foreign exchange market. I think despite all its faults, it's the most efficient market in the world. And the equities guys and the commodities guys can come and speak to me, but I really do believe that. I think crypto is more similar to the FX market than it is equities and commodities. And I just, look, we want to win commercially, we want to be a successful business, but the passion actually is hopefully helping create a better ecosystem. Of course, making money while we do it.
Yeah.
So if we can help create a crypto marketplace, we're getting to the stage in our lives and our careers where you want to have some legacy as well. So it's like at least be able to look back at some stage and going, well, I helped that asset class grow. I helped it develop. I hope actually we've been a positive influence in foreign exchange. Not everyone will agree, but I think we've helped move things along a little bit. And I think we're doing the same. I think it's almost our duty to do that in crypto. And it's very exciting. It's just an exciting place to be because there's so many gaps. And there's so many things. There's nothing that clever. It's like, hey guys, this is what happens in FX. Maybe if we transport that to crypto, it might be beneficial to you. And that's not to say we believe the FX market's perfect. We know it isn't.
Yeah. Well, I just want to give the audience a quick update because at the end of our first video, we made sure we had a manufactured disagreement on Bitcoin. I've just looked at the streaming Bitcoin price from LMAX Exchange, or LMAX Digital, on the FullFX website. How good is that? And
Nice.
Sadly, it's higher. So you're doing better than I am.
Yes. But we all know it's a long game, Colin.
Exactly. I'm going to wait until and ring you back.
I actually have that bet. My friend of mine, he's absolutely not in capital markets, has that bet with me every time I meet him in the pub. He says, right, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm buying it. He goes, like, I'm selling it. And whoever's right has to pay the bill.
It's a good market. It's a good market. As always, David, great to talk to you. Thanks very much for your time. And I look forward to the next Now Disruptor series.